Megan Torres had been living on orbital research platform Kepler-7 for 3 months when the refugee ship arrived. She was sitting in the mess hall eating her breakfast when the alarm sounded. It was not a danger alarm. It was the kind that meant something big was happening and all crew members needed to pay attention. She put down her fork and looked at the screen on the wall. Commander Kevin Ortiz appeared on it. His face was serious but not worried. "Attention all crew," he said. "We are receiving a Valkyrie refugee vessel. They have lost their homeworld and need shelter. Humanity has agreed to take them in. I expect everyone to treat our guests with respect. More information will follow." The screen went dark. The mess hall was quiet for a moment. Then everyone started talking at once. Megan had heard of the Valkyrie before. Most humans had. They were one of the older species in the galaxy and they looked nothing like humans. They had hard outer shells like insects with 6 limbs and large eyes that could see in many directions at once. They were known for being proud and private. They did not like to ask for help, but now they had no choice. Megan finished her breakfast and went to her workstation. She was an environmental systems technician. Her job was to make sure the air stayed clean, the water stayed pure, and the temperature stayed comfortable. It was not exciting work, but it was important. Without people like her, everyone on the station would be dead within a week. Her work area was in the lower decks, far from the command center and the nice quarters where officers lived. It was loud down there, with machines humming and pipes rattling. Most people avoided the lower decks unless they had to be there. That was exactly where the Valkyrie were placed. Megan did not see them at first. She only heard about them from other crew members. They said the Valkyrie were strange and unfriendly. They said the adults would not look humans in the eye and would not speak unless they had to. They said the whole group stayed in their assigned section and did not come out. Megan thought this was unfair. These beings had just lost their entire planet. Their home was gone forever. Of course they were not being friendly. They were grieving. 3 days after the Valkyrie arrived, Megan had to go to their section to fix a broken air filter. She put on her tool belt and walked down the long gray corridor until she reached the sealed door. She pressed the button to request entry. The door opened slowly. The first thing she noticed was how dark it was. The Valkyrie had dimmed all the lights to almost nothing. The second thing she noticed was the silence. There were supposed to be over 40 refugees in this section, but she could not hear anyone moving or talking. She stepped inside carefully. Her eyes took a moment to adjust to the darkness. Then she saw them. The Valkyrie adults were sitting along the walls, completely still. Their shells were a deep brown color that made them hard to see in the dim light. Their large eyes reflected the tiny amount of light from her work lamp, making them look like dozens of small moons floating in the darkness. No one spoke to her. No one moved. Megan felt her heart beating fast. She was not scared, not exactly, but she felt like she had walked into a place where she did not belong. She found the broken air filter and got to work. It was a simple fix. The filter had gotten clogged with dust and needed to be cleaned. She worked quickly and quietly, trying not to disturb anyone. That was when she heard it, a small sound, high and soft. Like a baby crying, but not quite. She stopped working and listened. The sound came again. It was coming from somewhere deeper in the section, past the rows of silent adults. Megan knew she should finish her work and leave. Commander Ortiz had told everyone to give the Valkyrie space. Do not bother them. Do not ask questions. Just let them settle in. But that sound, it pulled at something inside her chest. She finished fixing the filter and put her tools away. Then instead of leaving, she walked deeper into the section. She moved slowly, keeping her steps soft. The Valkyrie adults watched her pass but said nothing. She found them in a small storage room that had been converted into a sleeping area. The cubs, there were 7 of them. They were tiny, no bigger than house cats. Their shells were soft and gray instead of hard and brown like the adults. Their eyes were huge, taking up most of their small faces. They were huddled together in a pile, and several of them were making that crying sound she had heard. Megan stood in the doorway and stared. She had not known there were children among the refugees. No one had mentioned it. The cubs noticed her. They stopped crying and went very still, their big eyes fixed on her with a mix of fear and curiosity. Megan did not move. She did not want to scare them more than they already were. One of the cubs, the smallest one with a bent antenna, made a tiny chirping sound. It was not a cry. It was more like a question. Megan felt her heart break a little. These were children. They had been taken from their home, put on a ship, and brought to a strange place full of strange creatures. They were scared and confused and probably hungry, and the adults were too lost in their own grief to comfort them. She thought about her own childhood. She thought about her mother holding her when she was scared of thunderstorms. She thought about her father singing to her when she could not sleep. Every child deserved comfort. Every child deserved to feel safe, but these were not her children. They were not even her species. She had no right to interfere. She forced herself to turn around and walk away. She went back through the silent rows of adults, through the sealed door, and into the bright corridor beyond, but all through her shift, and all through dinner, and all through the long hours before she fell asleep. She kept hearing that crying sound. She kept seeing those huge, frightened eyes. She told herself it was not her problem. She did not believe herself. The next morning, she went to find Danny Reyes. He was the station's xenobiologist, a man with kind eyes and a gentle voice who had spent his whole career studying alien life. If anyone knew how to help the cubs, it would be him. She found him in his lab, looking at something under a microscope. "I need to ask you something," she said. He looked up and smiled. "Of course." "What is it?" "The Velthary cubs," she said. "What do they eat?" Danny's smile faded a little. He looked at her for a long moment. "Why do you want to know?" he asked. Megan thought about lying. She thought about making up some official reason. But Danny had always been honest with her, and she owed him the same. "Because they were crying," she said, "and no one was helping them." Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "They are omnivores," he said. "They like sweet things, sweet proteins especially. We have some honeyed nutrient paste in storage that might work." He paused and gave her a serious look. "Be careful, Megan. The Velthary are proud. They might not appreciate a human getting involved with their young." Megan nodded. "I understand." But as she walked to the storage bay to find that nutrient paste, she knew that understanding and stopping were two very different things. She had heard children crying in the dark. She could not just walk away. That was not who she was. That was not who humans were. Megan started with small steps. She did not want to scare the cubs or anger the adults. She just wanted to help. Every day after her morning shift, she would walk to the Velthary section with a small container of honeyed nutrient paste. She would go to the storage room where the cubs stayed and leave the food near the door. Then she would walk away without looking back. At first, the cubs would not touch the food until she was completely gone. She knew this because she asked the station's security officer, a quiet man named Ben Callahan, to check the cameras for her. He showed her the footage of the cubs creeping toward the container, sniffing it carefully, and then eating so fast they nearly choked. "They are really hungry," Ben said, frowning at the screen. "I know," Megan said. Her chest felt tight. She doubled the amount of food she brought. After a week, things started to change. The cubs stopped waiting for her to leave before eating. Instead, they would watch her from across the room as she set down the container. Their big eyes followed her every movement, but they did not run away anymore. Megan started talking to them. Not because she thought they could understand her words, but because she remembered how her mother used to talk to their family dog. It was not about the words. It was about the tone. It was about letting them know she was not a threat. "Good morning, little ones," she would say in a soft voice. "I brought you breakfast. I hope you like it." The cubs would tilt their heads and chirp at her. She had no idea what the chirps meant, but she liked to think they were saying thank you. The smallest cub, the one with the bent antenna, was the bravest. While the others stayed in their pile, this one would take a few steps toward Megan each day. Just a few steps. Then it would stop and watch her with those huge, curious eyes. Megan decided to call her Pip. She knew it was silly to name an alien creature, and she knew Pip probably already had a real name in her own language. But Megan needed something to call her, even if it was just in her own head. The Velthory adults noticed what Megan was doing. She could feel their eyes on her whenever she walked through their section. They never said anything to her directly, but she could tell they were not happy. One evening, her bunkmate Lavra Mendez sat down on her bed and gave her a worried look. "I heard you have been spending a lot of time with the Velthory," Lavar said. Megan shrugged. "I'm just bringing food to the cubs. That is all." "That is not all," Lavra said. "People are talking. They say you are getting attached. So what if I am?" Lavra sighed. "Megan, these are not puppies. They are alien children. They have parents. They have a culture. You cannot just adopt them because you think they are cute." "I am not trying to adopt them," Megan said. She could hear the frustration in her own voice. "I am just trying to help." "They were crying, Lavra. Every night I could hear them crying through the walls. And nobody was doing anything about it." Lavra was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and squeezed Megan's hand. "I know you have a big heart," she said. "It is one of the things I like about you. But please be careful. The Velthory have lost everything. They are scared and angry, and they do not trust us. If you push too hard, you could make things worse." Megan nodded. "I understand. I will be careful." But she did not stop bringing food to the cubs. She could not. 2 weeks after she started, something amazing happened. Megan was sitting on the floor of the storage room, waiting for the cubs to finish eating. She had started staying longer each day, just sitting quietly and letting them get used to her presence. She never tried to touch them or pick them up. She just sat there, as still as a statue, and let them come to her if they wanted. Pip finished eating before the others. She sat back on her 6 legs and cleaned her face with her front claws, making little clicking sounds. Then she looked at Megan. Megan smiled at her. "Hello, Pip. Did you enjoy your breakfast?" Pip chirped. Then she did something she had never done before. She walked toward Megan. Not just a few steps this time. She walked all the way across the room until she was standing right next to Megan's leg. She looked up at Megan with her huge eyes and chirped again. Megan held her breath. She did not move a single muscle. Pip reached out with one tiny claw and touched Megan's knee. Just a light tap, like she was testing to see if Megan was real. Megan felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them away and stayed perfectly still. Pip climbed onto Megan's leg. She was so light. Her claws were so small. She moved carefully, like she was afraid Megan might shake her off. But Megan did not shake her off. She did not move at all. Pip climbed up Megan's leg, across her stomach, and up to her shoulder. Then she slid down into the hood of Megan's oversized sweatshirt. Megan heard a tiny sigh. Then she felt a small, warm weight settle against the back of her neck. Pip had fallen asleep. Megan sat there for an hour without moving. Her legs went numb. Her back started to ache. She did not care. She would have sat there all day if she had to. The other cubs watched from across the room. They whispered to each other in their chirping language. Megan could not understand them, but she thought they sounded curious, maybe even jealous. When Pip finally woke up and climbed out of the hood, she chirped at Megan one more time. Then she ran back to join her siblings. Megan stood up on shaky legs and walked out of the section. She made it all the way back to her quarters before she started crying. She did not know why she was crying. She was not sad. She was happy, happier than she had been in a long time. But the tears came anyway, rolling down her cheeks like rain. Lavra found her sitting on her bed, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "What happened?" Lavra asked, alarmed. "Are you okay?" Megan laughed through her tears. "I am fine. Better than fine. One of the cubs fell asleep in my hood." Lavra stared at her. "That made you cry?" "Yes," Megan said. "I do not know why. It just did." Lavra sat down next to her and put an arm around her shoulders. "You are a strange person, Megan Torres." "I know," Megan said. "But I think that is okay." The next day, when Megan went to bring food to the cubs, Pip was waiting for her at the door. The little cub chirped excitedly and ran in circles around Megan's feet. "Hello, Pip," Megan said, laughing. "Did you miss me?" Pip chirped again and started climbing up Megan's leg before she even sat down. By the end of the week, it was not just Pip anymore. Two of her siblings had started climbing into Megan's hood as well. They would curl up together, their small bodies pressed against Megan's warm neck, and fall asleep within minutes. Megan learned to bring a book with her so she had something to do while she waited for them to wake up. She would sit on the floor for hours reading quietly while three tiny aliens slept in her hood. It was strange. It was wonderful. It was the best part of her day. She had never felt so needed. She had never felt so loved, and she knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning. Word traveled fast on a station as small as Kepler-7. By the third week, everyone knew about Megan and the Velthury cubs. Some of the crew thought it was sweet. They would smile at Megan in the hallways and ask how the little ones were doing. A few even asked if they could come watch, though Megan always said no. She did not want to overwhelm the cubs with too many new faces. Others thought it was strange. They whispered behind her back about the weird technician who spent all her free time with alien bugs. They wondered if she was lonely. They wondered if she had lost her mind. Megan did not care what people thought. She only cared about the cubs. And the cubs had made their choice. They had chosen her. Every day now, all 7 of them would come running when she entered the section. They would chirp and dance around her feet, climbing over each other to be the first one up her leg. They had learned that humans were warm, much warmer than Velthury adults, and that Megan's oversized hoodies were the perfect place for a nap. Megan had to start wearing bigger clothes just to fit them all. She talked to Danny Reyes about what was happening. He told her that Velthury cubs were designed to seek warmth and security. On their homeworld, they would sleep in large groups called clusters, sharing body heat to survive the cold nights. "But their adults run at a lower temperature than humans do," Danny explained. "You are like a living heater to them. No wonder they love you." Megan laughed at that. But deep down, she hoped it was more than just her body heat. She hoped they actually liked her for who she was. The Velthury adults did not share the cubs' affection. If anything, they seemed more uncomfortable with each passing day. They watched Megan with their large, unblinking eyes, and their antennae would twitch in ways she did not understand. One day, an adult female approached her as she was leaving the section. The female's translator device crackled as she spoke. "You come here every day," the female said. It was not a question. Megan nodded. "Yes, I bring food for the children." "They do not need your food?" "We have food." "I know," Megan said carefully. "But they seem to like the nutrient paste. And they seem to like the company." The female's antenna twitched sharply. "Company? You mean your company?" "Yes." The female stared at her for a long moment. Her expression was impossible to read. Then she turned and walked away without another word. Megan felt uneasy for the rest of the day. 3 days later, she was called to Commander Ortiz's office. He was sitting behind his desk when she arrived. Next to him stood a Velthury elder, a tall female with a darker shell than the others. Her eyes were old and hard, like polished stones. "Technician Torres?" Commander Ortiz said. "This is HFY. She is the leader of the Velthury refugees. She has asked to speak with you." Megan's heart started beating faster. She nodded respectfully to HFY and waited. HFY's translator hummed as she spoke. Her voice was cold and sharp. "You have been spending time with our young," she said. "Yes, Elder," Megan replied. "I have." "You have been feeding them, holding them, letting them sleep on your body?" "Yes." HFY's antenna moved in a complex pattern. Megan did not know what it meant, but it did not look friendly. "Among my people, young are raised by the community. They are taught to be strong and independent from their first days of life. They do not cling to single adults. They do not seek comfort. They learn to stand on their own." Megan listened without interrupting. She could feel Commander Ortiz watching her carefully. HFY continued. "What you are doing is teaching them weakness. You are making them dependent on you. This is not acceptable. Megan took a deep breath. She knew she had to be careful here. One wrong word could make things much worse. I understand your customs, Elder, she said slowly, and I respect them. I would never try to replace your community or tell you how to raise your children. That is not my place. She paused, choosing her next words with care. But with respect, Elder, I have seen those cubs. I have heard them crying in the night. They are not on your homeworld anymore. They are on a strange station, surrounded by strange creatures, in a place where everything is new and frightening. They are scared, Elder. They are so scared. Kethvior's eyes fixed on her. The Elder said nothing. Megan kept going. I do not know if what I am doing is right. Maybe it is not. Maybe I am making a mistake. But when a child is crying and no one is helping them, I cannot just walk away. I cannot pretend I do not hear them. That is not who I am. She straightened her back and looked Kethvior directly in the eyes. If you want me to stop, I will stop. I will respect your wishes. But I will not apologize for showing kindness to frightened children. I will never apologize for that. The room was silent. Megan could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Commander Ortiz looked uncomfortable. He opened his mouth to say something, but Kethvior raised a claw to stop him. The Elder studied Megan for a long moment. Her antenna twitched and twisted in patterns Megan could not understand. Then Kethvior spoke again. Her voice was different now, less cold, almost confused. Your species is very young, she said. Younger than almost any species we have encountered. You have only been traveling among the stars for a short time. You know very little about the galaxy and its ways. Megan nodded. This was true. Other species have told us about humans, Kethvior continued. They say you are strange. They say you form attachments too easily. They say you treat other creatures as if they were your own family, even when they are not. They say this is a weakness, a flaw in your nature. Megan felt a flash of anger but pushed it down. She stayed silent. Kethvior tilted her head. I am beginning to think they were wrong. Megan blinked. She had not expected that. I do not understand you, human, Kethvior said. I do not understand why you would care for children who are not yours. I do not understand why you would sit for hours with numb legs just to let them sleep. I do not understand why you would risk angering us just to bring them food. She paused. Her antenna finally stopped twitching. But I have watched them since you started coming. They cry less now. They eat more. They play together instead of hiding in corners. Megan felt tears threatening to spill. She blinked them back. Kethvior made a sound that might have been a sigh. I will allow you to continue. For now. But if you harm them in any way, there will be consequences. Do you understand? Megan nodded quickly. I understand. Thank you, Elder. Kethvior turned and walked out of the office without another word. Commander Ortiz let out a long breath. He rubbed his forehead and looked at Megan with tired eyes. That could have gone very badly, he said. I know, Megan said. I'm sorry for the trouble. He shook his head. Do not apologize. Just be careful. And Torres? Yes, Commander. He almost smiled. Good job. Megan walked back to her quarters feeling like she was floating. She had stood up for herself. She had stood up for the cubs. And somehow, against all odds, she had won. When she went to visit the cubs that evening, they mobbed her like always. Pip led the charge, chirping excitedly as she climbed up to her favorite spot in Megan's hood. Megan laughed and let them climb all over her. I am not going anywhere, she told them softly. I promise. And she meant it with all her heart. The sickness came without warning. It started with one of the older Velthari males. He began coughing during the evening meal, and by morning he could not stand. The station's doctor, a woman named Grace Kim, was called to examine him. She came back with a grim face. It is a respiratory infection, she told Commander Ortiz. Something in our air system that the Velthari have no immunity to. Their bodies are not used to human environments. Can you treat it? The commander asked it. Grace shook her head slowly. I can try, but I'm not sure our medicines will work on their biology. We need to isolate the infected and hope for the best. Within 3 days, half of the Velthari adults were sick. The refugees retreated into their section and sealed the door. It was their way. When a Velthari became ill, they isolated themselves. They did not ask for help. They did not seek comfort. They either healed on their own or they died alone. Megan tried to visit, but the door stayed locked. She pressed the button again and again, but no one answered. Please, she said through the door. Please let me help. Silence. She went to find Danny Reyes. He was in the medical bay, working with Grace Kim to analyze blood samples. How bad is it? Megan asked. Danny would not meet her eyes. Bad. Their immune systems are already weak from stress. They have been through too much. Their bodies are giving up. Megan felt cold all over. What about the cubs? Danny finally looked at her. His face was pale. Cubs are more vulnerable than adults. If the sickness spreads to them... He did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. Megan spent that night unable to sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Pip and the others. She thought about how small they were, how fragile, how they had just started to trust her. She could not lose them. She could not. The next morning, someone knocked on her door. Megan jumped out of bed and opened it. HFY War stood in the hallway. The elder looked terrible. Her shell had lost its shine. Her eyes were dull. She was leaning against the wall like she could barely stand. Elder, Megan said, shocked. You should be resting. You are sick. HFY War shook her head weakly. Her translator crackled as she spoke. The children, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. We cannot care for them. We are too weak. They will catch the sickness if they stay with us. Megan understood immediately. You want me to take them? HFY War's antenna drooped. It was the first time Megan had seen a Velthari look defeated. I am asking you to save them, HFY War said. I am asking you to do what we cannot. Megan did not hesitate. I will, I promise. HFY War looked at her for a long moment. Then she did something Megan had never seen before. She reached out with one trembling claw and touched Megan's hand. Thank you, she said. Then she turned and walked away. Megan went to the Velthari section immediately. The door opened for her this time. She walked through the dark corridors, past rows of sick adults lying on the floor, until she reached the storage room where the cubs waited. They were huddled in a corner, shaking. They could sense that something was wrong. When they saw Megan, they started chirping frantically and ran toward her. Megan knelt down and let them climb all over her. She counted them carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All of them. All safe. Come on, little ones, she said softly. You are coming with me. She gathered them up as best she could. 2 in her hood, 2 in her pockets, 2 clinging to her back, and Pip wrapped around her neck like a scarf. They were warm and trembling and so very scared. Megan walked back to her quarters with her precious cargo. Lavra was waiting there, eyes wide. What do we do? Lavra asked. Help me, Megan said. We need to keep them warm and fed and away from the sick. For the next 9 days, Megan barely slept. Danny helped her set up a heating system in her quarters. The cubs needed warmer temperatures than humans preferred. Megan did not care if she sweated. She only cared that they were comfortable. Grace came by every few hours to check on them. She showed Megan how to check their temperature, how to watch for signs of sickness, how to give them the medicine she had prepared. It might not work, Grace warned her, but it is the best I can do. It will work, Megan said firmly. It has to. The cubs did not understand what was happening. They knew they were not in their usual place. They knew their adults were not around. They clung to Megan desperately, refusing to let go even when she needed to use the bathroom. Megan held them through it all. She held them when they cried. She held them when they shook with fear. She held them when the fevers came and their little bodies burned with heat, On the fourth day, Pip got sick. Megan noticed it during the morning feeding. Pip would not eat. She just lay in Megan's lap, her eyes half closed, her breathing shallow. "No," Megan whispered. "No, no, no." She gave Pip the medicine and held her close. She wrapped the tiny cub in blankets and kept her warm. She did not put her down for a single second. Lavra tried to make Megan eat something. "You have to take care of yourself too," Lavra said. "Later," Megan said without looking up. "After she gets better? What if she does not get better?" Megan finally looked at Lavra. Her eyes were red from crying and lack of sleep. "She will," Megan said. "She has to." Lavra did not argue anymore. That night, Megan sang to the cubs. It was an old song her grandmother used to sing about a mother watching over her children while they slept. She did not know if the cubs understood the words, but they understood her voice. They understood that she was there and that she loved them. Pip stirred in her arms. The little cub opened her eyes and looked up at Megan. She made a tiny chirp. Weak but there, Megan kissed the top of her head and kept singing. The fever broke on the 7th day. Pip started eating again. Then she started playing again. Then she climbed back into Megan's hood like nothing had happened. One by one, the other cubs recovered too. Their fevers faded. Their appetites returned. Their chirps got louder and happier. On the 10th day, all 7 cubs were healthy. Megan finally allowed herself to sleep. She collapsed on her bed with cubs piled all around her and slept for 14 hours straight. When she woke up, Lavra was sitting beside her bed, smiling. "You did it," Lavra said. "They are all okay." Megan looked at the cubs sleeping peacefully around her. Pip was in her usual spot in the hood, even though Megan was lying down. The little cub had found a way to make it work. Megan laughed weakly. "I told you she would get better." Lavra shook her head in wonder. "You are crazy, you know that? 9 days without sleep, barely eating, risking your own health for alien children you have only known for a few weeks." Megan smiled. "Someone had to do it." "No," Lavra said softly. "Someone did not have to do it. But you chose to do it anyway. That is what makes you special, Megan. That is what makes humans special." Megan did not know what to say to that. So she just closed her eyes and went back to sleep. Surrounded by 7 warm little bodies and the sound of gentle chirping, she had done what she had promised. She had saved them, and she knew, without a doubt, that she would do it again in a heartbeat. The Velthari adults recovered slowly over the following weeks. It took time for their bodies to fight off the infection, and many of them remained weak for days after their fevers broke. But none of them died. Grace Kim called it a miracle. Danny Reyes called it luck. Megan did not care what they called it. She was just grateful when HFY was strong enough to walk again. She came to Megan's quarters. The door was open, and the elder stood in the doorway for a long moment before Megan noticed her. She was watching the cubs play on the floor while Megan read a book on her bed. Pip was in her usual spot, curled up in the hood of Megan's sweater. "Elder," Megan said, starting to stand. "Please come in." HFY held up a claw. "Stay where you are." Megan settled back down, confused. The cubs noticed HFY and chirped greetings, but they did not run to her. They stayed close to Megan. HFY's antenna moved in slow, thoughtful patterns. "I have been watching," the elder said finally. "From the cameras. Throughout the sickness." Megan felt her face grow warm. "I hope that is okay. I tried to take good care of them." "You did more than take good care of them," HFY said. Her voice was strange, heavy with something Megan could not identify. "You stayed awake for 9 days. You held them when they were sick. You sang to them in your language even though they could not understand the words." Megan shrugged. "They needed someone. I was there. You were more than just there." HFY stepped into the room. Her movement was slow but steady. "I have led my people for 40 cycles. I have seen many things. I have met many species. Never have I seen anyone do what you did." Megan did not know what to say, so she stayed silent. HFY continued. "Among my people we have a saying. When the home burns, the strong walk alone. It means that in times of crisis, each person must save themselves. Asking for help is weakness. Accepting help is shame. She paused. Her eyes were fixed on Pip, who had woken up and was peeking out from Megan's hood. I was ready to let my children die rather than ask you for help, HFY said quietly. I almost waited too long. If you had not cared for them, they would be dead now. All of them. Megan felt a chill run through her. She had not realized how close they had come. HFY looked at her directly. I was wrong. My pride almost killed them. But you had no pride. You only had love. And you gave it freely without asking for anything in return. She moved closer until she was standing right in front of Megan. Then, slowly and carefully, she lowered herself to her knees. Megan's eyes went wide. Elder, what are you doing? Please get up. HFY did not get up. Instead, she bowed her head until her antenna touched the floor. Among my people, she said, this is the deepest bow we can give. It is reserved for those who save lives at the cost of their own comfort. We call such beings nest builders. It is the highest honor we can offer. Megan felt tears streaming down her face. She wiped them away quickly, but more kept coming. Please, she said, her voice shaking. You do not have to do this. I did not do anything special. I just did what any human would do. HFY raised her head. For the first time since Megan had met her, the elder smiled. It was a strange expression on her face, but somehow beautiful. That is exactly what makes it special, she said. Any human would do this. Do you understand how rare that is in this galaxy? Do you understand what it means that your entire species would risk themselves for strangers? She stood up slowly. My people have traveled the stars for thousands of cycles. We have met species that conquered worlds, species that built empires, species that could destroy planets with a single weapon. We thought those were the strong ones. We thought power came from being alone and hard and cold. She reached out and gently touched Megan's cheek. Her claw was rough but gentle. We were wrong. True strength is not about being alone. True strength is about having others you would die for and who would die for you. True strength is about building nests for wanderers. True strength is being warm when the universe is cold. Megan could not speak. She just sat there, crying, while HFY's words washed over her. The cubs had gathered around them. They seemed to sense that something important was happening. Pip climbed out of the hood and onto Megan's shoulder. She pressed her small face against Megan's wet cheek and chirped softly. HFY watched this with wonder in her eyes. The little one loves you, she said. I love her too. Megan whispered. HFY nodded. Then she is yours if you want her. All of them can be yours. We will make the arrangements. Megan stared at her in shock. What? I cannot take your children. You already have? HFY said simply. They chose you. They will always choose you. We cannot change that, and we would not want to. You have earned their love, Megan Torres. You have earned our trust. She stepped back toward the door. When my people leave this station and find a new home, you will be welcome there. You and any human who travels with you. From this day forward, wherever Valkyrie fly, humans will be our friends. This is my promise. This is my gift. She bowed again, not as deep as before, but with clear respect. Thank you, Nest Builder. Thank you for showing us what we had forgotten. Then she turned and walked away. Megan sat in stunned silence for a long time. The cubs eventually got bored and went back to playing, but Pip stayed on her shoulder. Chirping contentedly. Lavra came back from her shift an hour later and found Megan, still sitting there with dried tears on her face. What happened? Lavra asked, alarmed. Are you okay? Megan laughed. It was a strange sound, half sob and half joy. I think I just got adopted, she said. Years later, when Megan was old and gray, she would tell this story to her grandchildren. Not just human grandchildren, but Valkyrie ones too. Pip had grown up and had cubs of her own, and those cubs loved Megan just as much as their mother did. The galaxy had changed a lot since that day on. Kepler 7, Humans had spread further into space, meeting new species and facing new challenges. But wherever they went, they found friends waiting. The Velthari had kept their promise. They told every species they met about the nest builders. They told them about the strange, warm, soft-hearted creatures who would sit sleepless for 9 days to comfort children who were not their own. They told them that if you were lost and alone and scared, the humans would help you. It became a tradition among spacefaring species. When a ship of any kind encountered a human vessel, they would send a single message: "Do you carry nest builders?" The answer was always yes, because that was what humans were. That was what humans had always been. Not the strongest or the smartest or the oldest species in the galaxy, but the kindest, the warmest. The ones who would never leave a child crying in the dark. Megan did not know any of this. When she was sitting in her quarters that day with Pip on her shoulder, she did not know she had changed the course of galactic history. She did not know she had started a legend that would last for thousands of years. All she knew was that she felt a small claw tap her back. And when she turned around, 7 pairs of huge eyes were looking at her with love. "Hello, little ones," she said softly. "Did you have a good day?" They chirped and climbed all over her, fighting for space in her hood. Megan laughed and helped them settle in, one by one, until they were all warm and comfortable. Then she leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes. She was home. They were home, and that was all that mattered.